Ice Age is directed by Chris Wedge, who stars in the movie as Scratt, and the movie itself stars Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Leary as Manny, Sid, and Diego, and tells a story about these three mammals ultimately coming together to have to return a baby to its family. Along the way, they run into some misadventures, side problems going on trying to deliver the baby. And Diego is part of a pack of sabers who are trying to kill the baby and its family. Now, this film was a childhood favorite of mine. I remember getting the DVD version, I have the Blu-ray right here, during my 7th birthday, I believe. I think it's actually my 8th birthday, actually. Yeah, it's my 8th birthday. Because that's the year the third Ice Age movie, Dawn of the Dinosaurs, came out. And I got the first Ice Age on DVD that birthday, along with the movie Robots. It was like a whole Blue Sky Studio party. And I watched Dawn of the Dinosaurs that same day, too, at a local movie theater. It was such a fun day. I remember that birthday so vividly. But yeah, I watched that film, and ever since I fell in love with it. I watched it before then, but I did not own it, and I always wanted to own the movie, and now I did, and I watched it ever since. I kept watching and watching it. I was obsessed with Ice Age back in the day. I remember going into the Ice Age 3 website, the worldwide website, and they would have a few video games I would play there, a few background stuff. I will also go into the Ice Age 2 website too. Man, it was such a fun time being a kid. This was one of my most obsessive film franchises ever, especially the first movie. And watching it again after all these years, this still, like The Land Before Time that I reviewed a few days ago, still holds up in terms of storytelling and quality. Now, as a film, it's not the greatest movie ever made. I don't think it holds up as a story compared to something like Monsters, Inc. or Finding Nemo or any of Pixar's or DreamWorks' best efforts at the time. But for a first-time movie for a studio that's just popping up, there's a reason why this got a Best Academy Award-winning for Animated Feature nomination. This film was really good for its time, and even though the animation is a bit dated, it still works very well, and the character designs and everything still looked fluid enough. The way they moved around was both cartoonish and smooth. I felt like, compared to all the other movies, this had the most raw emotion out of all the other films. And the characters themselves, because they weren't baggaged with so many extra side characters, you get to spend a lot more time developing these characters, having us care about them. You only have to focus on 3 characters here. Rather, with the other movies, they kept trying to add new characters each time, and it just became tiring all of a sudden. And it's one of the reasons why this film, in my opinion, works very well. It did not have to worry about setting up so many characters. It just told a story about 3 dudes trying to return a baby. That was it. That was the plot. It's very simple, and while the stakes may seem low, what was added to that plot line makes the stakes feel all the more important. Diego is a part of a pack that's trying to kill the baby, so you're not sure whether he's going to go through with it or not. And throughout the film, he gradually leads into his newfound friends. They seem to care more about him than his pack does for him in the process. And so he has a change of heart. He ultimately helps his friends by the end. And the villains here are probably the most were definitely the most menacing villains in the entire franchise. Sodo and his pack were genuinely a threat to these characters. You felt like these characters could die at any moment. You understood their motivations too, and in some ways you can get behind what they are doing. And they're just being saber-toothed tigers. In their eyes, they're being who they are. And honestly, the only thing keeping them back from being completely good characters is just the harsh nature that they have with each other. Yes, they want revenge for the pack, but how they talk to each other do not feel like they care one bit about each other at all. And I ultimately wanted Diego to be a part with Manny and Sid. Sid is a character that you could go completely wrong with. But unlike the sequels, if you don't focus on that, he was able to balance a lot of heartwarming moments along with his silliness and stupidity at times. And he ultimately has not the best character arc of becoming the most trustworthy and most helpful of the group, but ultimately I did find his character overall endearing. And Manny's character, nobody talks about Manny in Ice Age enough. He had one of the more tragic stories in which his family gets killed by cavemen, and he ultimately has to return the baby to the species that killed his family, and ultimately grows a forgiveness towards them. He ultimately is emotionally involved with the story the most because of this, and it just made his character journey from being a stoic, mean mammoth to a caring friend very engaging. In Scratt here, what I noticed something about Scratt in this film is that yes, he pops up time to time randomly, but it only lasts for like a couple of seconds, really, unless you don't count the first and last appearance of Scott, in which he has actual scenes dedicated to him. Everything else is just little moments in which he just makes a little cameo here and there. Whereas with the sequels, they give him legit scenes in between the story. Here, because they only take like a couple of seconds, really, the story is never detracted to focus on a random storyline ever. It never felt out of place. And so the story still feels very engaging. Whereas with the other sequels, you could argue that you're more engaged with Scratt's story and that you want a solo film with him only. But here, they understood how to use his character properly. The animation and design of the entire world, while it is simple to me, feels all the more engaging. Because in that way, even though there are still cartoonish things going around, it still feels realistic enough for you to get attached to this world and characters. And I just found this environment just appealing enough for me, really. I like that they did a few more things with the environment in future movies. Like they are able to add a lot more characteristic designs to the places our characters go to. But there came a point where it just got way too much, and I wanted to go back to the first few movies where they designed pretty simple areas that worked effectively for their stories. Just overall, in the music, nobody talks about it, but the music here is incredibly underrated. Who did the score for this movie again? Who was it? It wasn't David Newman. David Newman's score, fantastic. I love his themes. His themes in the first Ice Age film were never used ever, unless you count that one scene in Collision Course, but that's it. His themes in this film are just Ice Age to me. Like, when I think of Ice Age, I think of David Newman's themes. The opening scene in which we revealed the whole herd walking down south, and the little theme for Scratt and Sid, and the saber-tooth tigers, and the cave scene in which we are revealed Manny's tragic backstory. Oh man, the music worked so well here and was so memorable. I love the Meltdowns theme, but the other films reused that soundtrack way too many times already, and I got sick of it. I wanted more of these themes back again. But yeah, and I cannot go on talk about Ice Age without talking about the Semi on the Way scene. I remember playing this song over and over again, looking at Ice Age pictures so many times as a kid, and it just felt right. The other movies try to add more modern songs to the movies as time went on, but to me, this song just felt tonally and it just felt tonally right for the film, where it takes place and everything. And while it was a modern song at its time, it still fits well within the tone of the film and where the film takes place, that it doesn't feel out of place. It felt natural. And that's what I love about this entire film. It was simple, it was effective, it felt natural, the story was engaging enough. It never had big strides that I think it needed to accomplish. It just wanted to tell a fun story with these characters, and it did. My one problem is that the animation is a bit tad dated, and the story is not as engaging as some other movies like Monsters Inc., in which movies like that did the same premise a bit better in terms of storytelling department. But for what this movie did and what it was at the time, I think it still did a very effective job, and I was able to get attached to its characters well enough even today. And so for that reason, I'm going to give Ice Age an A-. Still a childhood favorite of mine. I still really enjoyed it. Not a perfect movie, but I still highly recommend it, compared to what the franchise ultimately became now. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time.